Howdy all. Welcome on into Goose Talks Film. And this week we are covering the new release film Sting. It's a bit like Abigail. It's kind of new release. It's kind of not really. It's been out probably a bit over a month now, maybe a bit longer. It is a sibling movie of 2024. So for people that don't know what a sibling movie is, it's pretty much two movies that kind of share the same overall plot line or underlining plot line and are released in a similar time frame. Obviously, this sibling being Sting and Infested, which was the French spider horror movie that I covered probably about a month ago, I reckon now, maybe a bit longer. But so I don't like to compare movies too much, but as I've said in previous podcasts about sibling movies, is I will be kind of comparing because it's just easier to compare. They're released around the same time. People might want to only watch one of them, so that's what I'm going to kind of talk about a little bit. It's not going to be a full comparison podcast. I will be mainly talking about Sting itself, but I guess the easiest way to kind of describe a few of the pros and the cons will be comparing to Infested's pros and cons. I just think that's just a easy way to do it and easy to follow. Anyway, Sting is an Australian-American production. I think it's majority an Australian movie, from what I can gather. It was helped funded by Screen Australia, and the entire cast is Australian except for Jermaine Fowler, who plays a supporting character. So, yeah, I mean, I was really excited for this a while ago when I did first see the trailers and kind of read up about it. There wasn't really a lot of hullabaloo about this when it was announced and the cast was announced, and because a lot of these Aussie actors are quite well known here in Australia, mainly Ryan Corr and Noni Hazelhurst. Those two are definitely familiar names within Australia and Australian moviegoers and TV goers, mainly TV, especially Ryan Corr. But for horror fans out there, he is actually the protagonist in Wolf Creek 2. So that's where a lot of people probably recognise Ryan Corr outside of Australia, because we know Wolf Creek always does well overseas, particularly in America. But yeah, anyway, so Sting is, like I said, a spider horror movie. It leans more into comedy than what Infested does. Infested was kind of tried to be as realistic and grounded as it could be, whereas Sting, it knows what it is. It's trying to be, the old school creature feature movies from the 70s, 80s, and a little bit of the 90s, where we don't really tend to get a lot of these movies where it's kind of in a secluded building or a secluded town or, at a lake or on a boat or something. Killer animal movies were really big, like I said, in the 70s because of Jaws. It spawned so many different types of killer animal movies, about bears, snakes, other shark movies. Then the 90s, we got a lot of it as well. We had like Anaconda and Deep Blue Sea, and that kind of had a little resurgence there for a bit. Mid-90s to early 2000s, it kind of died off. And we've got a few of, mainly shark movies is pretty much the only time we get a lot of movie companies willing to spend a bit of money on killer animal movies is mainly sharks. The rest are all, lower budget or the independent or the shitty-ass TV movies like Sharknado and all that. So it's good to see this movie. I'm not sure. I can't find what the overall budget for this movie is, but it did make nearly $2 million at the box office, which is probably going to be underwhelming because this does look like it was made for more than that. Comparing it to other horror movies around that time, which another Australian movie, Late Night with the Devil, that had a budget I think of around 10, 11 million, and I think this would probably be a bit lower than that, considering they don't rely on CGI heaps. And this movie entirely takes place in one building. So that would have saved money there. So my guess would be about between 4 to 6 million. Could be less, could be more. Not sure what the marketing was like. There's a period where I was seeing a lot of this marketed for about a week. I think it was about 2 weeks before it was released, and then I just heard nothing or saw nothing. Like on Twitch, on YouTube, I saw trailers, and then done. So they didn't spend a lot of money on marketing. But anyway, so more into the plot line. This is a short plot from IMDb. After raising an unnervingly talented spider in secret, 12-year-old Charlotte must face her facts about her pet and fight for her family's survival when the once charming creature rapidly transforms into a giant flesh-eating monster. So I mean, as you can tell from the plot line there, uh, it kind of takes itself seriously in certain parts, and it knows what it is in other parts. And I can appreciate that. I don't mind that. It's just I wish they kind of picked a tone and kind of stuck with it. And I don't mind a movie either being serious with a bit of, humorous comedy scenes thrown in, or the other way around, a comedy movie with a few serious scenes thrown in. It kind of the former works better in my opinion, but they can both work depending on the execution. And yeah, like we always do here on Goose Talks Film, I recommend a movie out of three categories, which is go see this at the movies, wait until streaming, or don't bother at all. Uh, like I said, I'm a bit late to the party for this. It's probably done its theatre releases kind of everywhere worldwide. There might be a few little trinkles of screenings somewhere in like major cities and stuff, but I think because it did underwhelm at the box office, it's probably done. But I think this movie is would be enjoyed more with a group of friends or a group of people, if that be at home or if that be at the movies. It's not really a movie thing or a streaming thing. It's kind of more, I think you would enjoy this with a group of friends. You might get scared together. You might like laugh at each other. You might all get jump scared. I think it'd be good fun. This would be a really, really good movie night. For maybe like a date night or, you know, double date, triple date, or just a group of friends or whatever it is. I think this would be a really good group viewing. Yeah, like I said, if that be at the movies or at home. Look, I still did relatively enjoy this movie to a degree. So, yeah, would I recommend this movie to everyone? Kind of a tough one. I think if you have severe arachnophobia, I mean, I have arachnophobia, but I mean, I didn't have any nightmares or dreams after this, or I wasn't even really looking over my shoulder or anything like that, like I was with Infested, mainly because of the type of movie this is. It's a silly movie, whereas Infested, like I said, and it's a different type of spider as a villain. Like Infested was an infested building of these massive spiders that all grow rapidly quick, and there's different sizes, and they kind of is an infestation. Excuse me. Whereas Sting really is using the formula from your original killer animal movies. So like, even earlier in the 70s, there was heaps in the 40s, 50s, 60s. They kind of had higher budgets and were kind of more widely seen in the 70s because of Jaws, like I said. But yeah, this follows that formula of this is just one animal. It rapidly grows. It's kind of hunting and preying in this one building with all these tenants of this apartment building. So yeah, if you like movies where people are getting picked off one by one, it's kind of technically like a slasher formula where people are getting picked off one by one. And instead of kind of a killer in a mask or an undead person, it's just a rapidly growing giant spider. So yeah, look, I would recommend this to people that want to maybe make themselves feel uncomfortable a bit. It's not going to be, there's not a shit ton of violence. There's maybe a few little gory scenes that might make you feel uncomfortable, but by no means is this like over the top, crazy, violent, or gory, or anything like that. There's nothing really triggering in this movie either compared to other movies I've covered on the podcast, like Immaculate and some other ones. Except if you have a fear of, like I said, if you have arachnophobia, if you have severe arachnophobia, I wouldn't recommend this because it might fill your head with like shit that's probably not going to happen. But we all know what phobias are like. It's kind of your brain tells you things are going to happen or could happen that 99.9% probably aren't going to happen. But yeah, look, I thought this was a decent Australian movie. I think Australia, I love that we're leaning more into horror than we ever have before. I mean, we've been doing horror since I think the 60s and 70s, but it's never really been one where we've been pumping out heaps of movies in the one genre and also willing to put money into it. They are kind of doing that now with Talk to Me, which pretty much came out this time last year, maybe a bit later. I think it was July of 23. Then you have Late Night with the Devil. Now you have Sting. And there's other ones as well, like the Royal Hotel, which was kind of more of a thriller. But we are really leaning more into it, and I really do appreciate that. And by the way, my dog Toby says hi if you can hear him barking through the microphone. Because I am doing this as a video and a podcast, I can't stop recording or it stuffs everything up. So I apologise if you can hear him barking. It is switching out, but this is literally the only time I can record this. So I apologise. Anyway, We're not talking about my killer dog. We're talking about a killer spider. Yeah, look, before we get to the spoiler zone, all I'll kind of finish on is don't expect to watch an amazing technical movie or anything like that. I think the visual effects are good. I think the practical effects they use is really good. I think there's a balance of CGI when it's needed and practical effects where it's gonna work more and it's more effective. So I think they've definitely got a good balance there, and I think that's a thing where a lot of killer animal movies either get right or they get severely wrong. Is overusing CGI or maybe using it when they shouldn't have, or probably use it when kind of word to fuck myself here. But yeah, that's kind of what I'll finish on before we get into the spoilers. So here is your spoiler warning. So anyway, we are going into the more in-depth side of Sting. Yeah, look, I've written some notes here. I did watch this a few nights ago, so it's not entirely fresh in my brain. I watched this Thursday. I'm currently recording this on Sunday because this is kind of the only time I could record this. So everything's not fresh. I'll be kind of relying on my notes I've written here. So I apologize if you're watching the video version on YouTube, which I appreciate. I will be kind of looking at my phone, but I'll try and just quickly read something that should jog my memory. But yeah, I think, like I've kind of already alluded to, I think, unfortunately well, I mean, it depends on which one you prefer because they're both very different in their tones and kind of how they use the spider as the villain. But yeah, with Infested, I watched Infested first, so I'm going to have high expectations. I really enjoyed Infested. I thought, yeah, it was a great movie, let alone like good foreign language movie. If you're into them, if you're not, that's fine. But I thought it was like a really good movie in terms of just the characters. I think really carried that movie. Like I said, that was more based in realism and grounded in as much as it could be a better movie of spiders infesting a building. Whereas, yeah, Sting, the opening scene, or the first time we see the spider in the opening credits, it's playing like an old kind of poppy, silly song. And the meteorite pops through the window, and it's the spider kind of in like an alien. I think that's a callback to Alien. I could be wrong, but it looks like it's a callback to Alien because the shell / egg looks very, very similar. Meteorite, whatever you want to call it, looks very similar to the xenomorph / facehugger ones, which I don't mind the callback. I think it's a cool visual. And it lands in a dollhouse and it kind of hatches and the girl finds it. And I thought it was really silly. It kind of took me off guard. I didn't realize that the movie was going to be that silly. And it didn't. And it's hard to, because how are they going to know how the spider got there? But it's kind of, yeah, it makes it silly and it tells you what kind of movie this is going to be from the start in terms of, look, our big villain of the movie is a rapidly growing spider, but it arrived at a meteorite that crashed into a fucking dollhouse. I will read the full plot synopsis. It's not as big as what it usually is. It's only 3 paragraphs and like one last sentence. So bear with me as usual. I'll read the plot, and if it's missing anything, I'll just fill in the gaps. Charlotte, a rebellious 12-year-old girl, lives in a dilapidated apartment building with her overworked stepfather, Ethan, her mother, and infant half-brother. Charlotte is often left to her own devices and stumbles upon a tiny spider hatched from a strange, glowing object that crash lands in her great aunt's apartment. Intrigued, she decides to keep the spider as a pet, naming it Sting. As Charlotte cares for Sting, the spider begins to grow at an alarming rate. She initially keeps it its size a secret, but as it becomes more difficult to hide, her father and neighbours start to notice strange occurrences around the building. The spider's growing size and insatiable appetite soon lead to the death of pets and residents. Charlotte's relationship with her stepfather is strained over the reality of her biological father. During a meltdown from Ethan, Sting attacks both parents while Charlotte is nearby, oblivious with her brother. The tension escalates when Sting, now a gigantic spider, traps several residents in the building using mimicked sounds to lure prey. Charlotte, accidentally learning the spider's weakness from her grandmother, goes on a hunt for her now missing family. As Charlotte saves Ethan, they face numerous obstacles, including the spider's intelligence and adaptability. During a showdown in the building's basement, Sting attacks the group, resulting in a battle. Charlotte manages to lure Sting into a trap with the help of Ethan. Using a trash compression device, they finally destroy the monstrous spider, but not without sustaining significant losses. So yeah, and look, I kind of knew what I was getting into when I watched this movie. I knew from the trailers it was going to be a bit more silly than Infested. It wasn't going to take itself as serious, but like I said, it kind of there's a lot of tonal shifts. It didn't want to decide what it wanted to be. Did it want to be a serious movie about a killer spider that rapidly grows in an apartment building, killing people, with a few funny scenes, a few goofy scenes, or did it want to be a full silly movie with a few good kills and and gore and stuff? But it didn't execute either. So I think that the tone was a big issue for me. Whereas Infested, it knew what it wanted to be. It was a character-driven movie with a lot of social undertones. It made you think about society and societal changes that should, need to be made, whatever, and kind of use the spiders to push that narrative. Where this is just a movie about a killer spider in a building killing people that has a bit of human drama. Two very, very different movies on the movie spectrum. So that's why I say to people, look, if you only want to watch one of them, it really depends on what type of movie viewer you want and what type of movie you want to consume with, the short time a lot of people have these days. We're all, what I say, I don't want to speak for everybody or myself, but people are working longer and harder for less money. Me, I'm lucky, I'm in a very good position, but not everyone is like that. So I know, not everyone can afford to go to the movies. I know people don't have time to go to the movies. They can't have people look after their kids, or because the rest of their family are working, blah, 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 blah. So I think, because I get a lot of people ask me, like, what movies, I'll say that sentence again. I get a lot of people ask me for movie recommendations. I said, look, all depends on your time, all depends on what you want to consume, what type of moviegoer you are, and what you want to consume. And this one, I would recommend to people that are just horror fans in general. I don't think this is going to turn any horror fans away or piss them off, or they're not going to sit through it. I think most people would enjoy this. I think most people would find entertaining, even just parts of it. I think they'll find at least one aspect they liked. They might like the spider design. They might like how good the visual effects are. They might like some of the kills. They might like the characters. They might like the setting. And like I've spoken about on this podcast before, if you're a frequent listener, I like my horror movies, not all horror movies, but I like certain horror movies, depending on what the storyline, the plot is. I like them to be in confined areas. I think it shows how good of a writer, producer, director, actor, whatever you are, if you can tell this intricate, well-written and driven story in a confined space or confined area, even like a little lakeside town or a underground cave system or a big old mansion, a church, a monastery, whatever. And I think we are getting a lot of these little sub-genre movies now where we're getting a lot of these movies that share kind of one setting. And I think the apartment building one is one I really, really do like. We had Infested, we have Sting, we had Evil Dead Rise last year. Now, I really do like movies set in apartment buildings. I think it creates a lot of cool things you can work with. You can, you have a lot of people that you can give a little bit of character development to, and then you can feed them to the monster killer disease, whatever story you're telling. And Infested and Sting both did this quite well. I think Sting did a really, really good job at they telegraphed who our victims were going to be, but they gave us enough about these characters to kind of care enough for them, or at least be like, oh yeah, this person deserves to be fucking killed. Oh, and I really hope this person does get killed. Or just like Infested with a few of the neighbours, you're like, oh, fucking hope this dude gets fucking killed. Or I hope this chick survives because she's really nice. So when you're kind of feeling that type of stuff, and when you say it to yourself or say it in your head or say it to whoever you're watching the movie with, that's a good sign for a movie. And I was watching this, I thought, oh, I really like this actor. Like, Jermaine Fowler, who I kind of know as a bit more of a comedian than an actor, and he's, like I said, to my knowledge, only American actor in this. So I think the American production company who was involved in this, or distributor, I can't remember, one or two, they probably would have said, hey, you can use Australian actors, that's fine, but we just want one American actor to kind of bridge that to American viewers, so they're kind of someone they're familiar with, even though he's not a massive name, but that's what happens a lot. So, yeah, look, I thought a lot of the kills were really good. They weren't overly graphic. Probably some were, but I did like the neighbor who had a lot of the animals in his apartment who was doing tests on, where it's all dark and gloomy and creepy in his apartment. Eric, I think his name was. I thought he was an interesting character. I don't think we got explanation enough as to why he was a person who did experiments, blah blah blah. And that, I mean, that's probably why. But it was kind of a big curve or a swerve, what do you want to call it, that he dobbed Charlotte in for having the spider to her dad. So the dad knew that Eric kept the spider, but Eric said he was going to give it to the right authorities. But he kept it and he fed it because he wanted to get bigger. It's kind of like, okay, well, a bit more explanation on the character and why he would want to do that. But I guess I would just read into it as like, okay, he's experimenting, he's into experiments, blah, blah, blah. But what I don't get about that is when he was experimenting on the fish was because he wanted to cure, I can't remember exactly what it was, but cure something to do, a spine disease or something, right? Or a bone disease, something like that. What's growing a venomous, huge spider going to achieve? Unless you just want to kind of, you're intrigued. But answer we didn't get, but I thought it wasn't really a major issue. It's just something I want to bring up. I found it just a little bit frustrating. So Eric was a good character, and then his death was pretty much off screen, which he was kind of the neighbor we mainly saw other than family. But yeah, anyway, I thought having an exterminator as a side character it probably wasn't a direct callback to the 1990 Arachnophobia movie, but which was obviously John Goodman in Arachnophobia. I just had a mental blank then. John Goodman in Arachnophobia, where he was kind of a goofy exterminator who helps him and stuff, whereas Jermaine Fowler's very goofy in kind of a different way. You're not sure if he's a douchebag or if he's just eccentric, but it turns out he's a bit of a douchebag because he pretty much sacrifices Ryan Coogler and Charlotte so he can survive, but he gets a pretty gruesome death. I think the trash compactor was probably a bit too telegraphed for my liking from the start because obviously Ryan Coogler's character, he's like a comic book artist / writer by kind of trade, but it's kind of his side project at the moment while he's trying to get funding and get them printed. So he's working as like the super / handyman for the apartment complex. And yeah, pretty much the boiler and also the trash compactor aren't really working properly. I thought, okay, well, that trash compactor is going to come into play. And it did. It pretty much is what kills the spider. And I thought, look, I understand that you kind of have to show the audience, and I love that stuff. I love when they subtly do it. This was just kind of, okay, they kind of focus on it too much and made it too much of a point where they are just telegraphing it too much. But what else have I got here? Yeah, the characters in this definitely felt more like horror movie characters or just movie characters in general, as opposed to the realistic people that I could, what's the word? I could relate to in Infested, whereas these were movie characters. And that might sound weird and it's kind of hard to explain, but if you know, you know, where it's like, you're watching a movie like, oh yeah, these are written like movie characters. They're fitting into this movie for whatever reason, whereas in Infested and other type of movies, you're like, oh, these are people that just feel like they're out of real life put into a movie. Where, yeah, this didn't really feel like that at all. I think the old lady, the mother, the grandmother, she was the mother of Charlotte's mother. That was a lot of mothers in that one sentence. Did make for like an entertaining scene for like the spider killing 3 exterminators at the start, and then obviously, well, we think that Jermaine Fowler gets killed, but he comes back later. But so it jumps then back 4 days, which I thought was interesting for a movie like this to tell that type of story, to kind of start with one scene, then backtrack, and then we kind of hit the opening scene kind of 3/4 in. I didn't mind it. You know, it didn't really change my experience, good or bad, to be honest. One bit of that annoys me, though, because I might have missed a line. It might have just been one line explaining it, but I missed it if they did do it, where Jermaine Fowler, he bombs the building, does it, and they don't want to pay him, whatever. Then he comes back later on when the grandmother calls him, and there's other exterminators there, and we see them that one's already been killed and one pretty much gets killed on screen in front of us. Well, I don't remember them getting called in, unless the evil aunt, you know, the grandmother's sister, called them in because she didn't want to pay Jermaine Fowler's prices, but they kind of just rocked up just to be kind of victims. And I may have missed a line, I may have, but other than that, there was no explanation why there was other exterminators there, unless the grandmother called them first and then called him and forgot they were there. I don't know. I don't know. They just didn't really explain it that good. But I thought, yeah, the grandmother having dementia and kind of forgetting that she even called anyone there to be killed was a nice touch. Uh, I did appreciate the small scale tracking shots where you're kind of following a character through their little apartment building or through a hallway, or when they're following Ryan Core in the basement when he's near the trash compactor and all that. I thought some of the shots were cool. I thought they were nice, engaging shots, nice establishing shots. So I thought it was good for a movie like this to do cinematography that good. I like the fact that they technically weren't snowed in because the exterminator left in cam a couple of times. But I like the fact that the snow added to kind of them kind of being stuck inside. They really couldn't do anything else other than go to work and come back. But both parents worked from home. So I thought that was a nice touch where they're all kind of stuck in the building, and that kind of adds to the whole terror of it all. I thought that the spider imitating noises that it hears and then using it to lure prey is a nice touch, because we know spiders don't do that specifically, but do other things to lure prey in, like trapdoor spiders, bird-eating spiders and all that will do different ways to lure their prey in. So I thought having this alien-type spider, I mean, that's what it is. That is its way to lure prey in, and it's very effective. I think it's cool. It's different. I haven't seen that in a spider movie before, or even really a lot of killer animal movies before. So I thought, yeah, that was really cool. It obviously imitated a cat. It had its little... the creepy scene where it does the noise when it's like feeding time, I thought was quite cool. So I liked that. I thought that was cool. I thought that was different. It was a breath of fresh air. It kind of gave the movie a bit of originality, which is good when you're doing a movie about spiders. When we've had a few in the past, but not a lot lately. I thought the main girl, Charlotte, I thought she was annoying in the sense I couldn't read what type of character she was. I don't know if that comes down to the acting or the writing or both, but it's kind of like some scenes, her face expression and the way they're shooting it makes her feel like she's this evil character that wants everyone to be killed. She's using this spider as her kind of henchman to kill these people that pissed her off. And then other scenes, it's kind of like, no, she's just a kid that's going through problems because she's wants to love her stepdad, but she's finding it hard. She thinks her dad is living in Thailand, but he's literally only a 20-minute drive away. But they don't do a good enough job in telling us what this girl's thing is. And she's 12, I know, so she's going through a lot of stuff. She's not an adult yet, so she's still adapting to certain things. But I thought the actress did a good job in certain scenes. And I think when you're directing and writing for kid actors and stuff, you really need to look after them and protect them and all that. I don't think they did a good enough job here. I'm sorry, but I just don't think they did a good enough job. The lady, the neighbor we see that doesn't say how or why or anything like that, but she's lost her sons. We don't know if the father just left or he died as well, but we know she lost two of her sons. Anyway, she gets bitten and then she hits her head on the bath in the bathroom, and then the spider going in her mouth and then kind of eating her insides and fuck that was gruesome. That was probably the most messed up scene in the whole movie that we got, and I thought that was really cool. I thought that was effective. When you're doing a movie like this, I think it's really important to have this animal, as it's adapting, as it's getting bigger, blah, 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 it does different things, and I think the way it kills people from size to size is really cool. I think it's really effective. When it was smaller, it killed this woman, it bit her, then it went inside of her when she was kind of paralyzed and fucked her up from the inside. It killed the animals as it was getting bigger, and then as it got its huge size, that's when it was putting whole-size humans, adults, in cocoons and then eating them when it was hungry. So I liked how it was like what animals do when they're growing up, when they're getting bigger, they adapt to certain things and to their environment, and their hunting differentiates. So I did like that aspect. I thought it was really cool. Very gruesome scene. Yeah, like I said, we don't see a lot of the other neighbours much, but we know enough about them to care for them and be like, okay, they seem like real neighbours in this, weird group of collective neighbours. Everyone gathered on the same floor, but so the lady that lost her family, then we have Eric, the wannabe scientist or whatever he is. I don't think he's an actual scientist, but then we have the two elderly women, which is the grandma and the evil aunt, and then we have our main family that we focus on, and then we have Jermaine Fowler as he's the outside character, he's the exterminator, which I think was a good balance of all that. So good job. Yeah, I think Eric snitching on Charlotte, like I said earlier, and then feeding the spider made for a really creepy scene. Like, that was really creepy when it just cuts to Eric. And I think he throws a rabbit or a mouse in there. I was really quick, I didn't quite see it, but it throws something live in there. The spider's in the corner, and then it jumps off. You hear the like the splatter noise, and you see blood go everywhere, and you see Eric go, yeah, eat more, more. And it's like, whoa, this is creepy. The next scene we see of the spider in Eric's apartment is it's in this little tiny, well, it's the same enclosure, but it looks tiny now because we see the outline, like, figure of the spider, and it's huge, like it's barely contained, and then it shatters the containment that it's in. It was really cool. I thought it was really creepy that we didn't actually see the spider yet. It was just the outline of it. It was, yeah, just a shadow, and I thought it was really cool. We didn't really get over the top exposure of the spider. Like I always say with these type of movies in general, and horror when it comes to killers and stuff, is less is more. So I think this movie did another good job of that. So props. I think a scary fact I thought of to myself was, I don't know if this is official or not with Infested, but just from just visual, the spiders in Infested looked like they were based off of Huntsman's. And the spider in this was obviously clearly based on a redback. It's literally just a redback in design. That's what it is. And they're both common spiders here all throughout Australia. Like, you can find both these species pretty much anywhere in Australia, in any state, in certain areas or whatever. So I think it's really scary that two fucking spiders that were focused on as villains in horror movies are both here in Australia. So, yep, that's really scary to think about. What I appreciate about Sting, as opposed to Infested, is we do get these little goofy scenes that are entertaining, blah, 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 whereas Infested was very, like I said, I've said a million times, Infested was grounded and reality-based, and it wanted you to care about the characters. It wanted you to be devastated and gut-wrenched when these characters got killed. Sting is like, hey, you see this person? Yeah, they're going to get fucked up by this spider in different ways. Just watch. So, two very different approaches. I thought, I appreciated the goofiness of this movie, and I could enjoy the goofiness because it wasn't too serious. So, I thought the scene where Ethan and the mum are having a big fight because Charlotte and Ethan just had a big spiel about him being her stepdad and not a real dad and blah, blah, blah. And then she goes off. She's sitting next to the baby. I can't remember the baby brother's name, but she's in there with the dog of the woman neighbor that was found dead, that hit her head in the bathtub. So those three in the room. And then we see the parents arguing, and then we see the shot of the spider, which is probably the most we've seen of it since it's been this big. And it comes in on the roof. And then it captures both of them while they're all in the next door room, and Charlotte has no idea because the headphones are in. I thought that kind of left field. And when I first watched it, I thought, oh my God, they killed both parents in one full sweep. But to that point, we hadn't seen that it was cocooning the adults yet, or humans. And then we eventually see that it had cocooned Gunta, I think her name was, or something like that. They were playing Russians or Polish, or I'm not quite sure, I apologise. But that's when you say, oh shit, it's cocooning people like it was with the bugs in the jar. That's crazy. But at first I thought, wow, that's ballsy to kill both parents off. And I appreciated it more. Then when I found out, oh, they're not really dead, blah, 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 I kind of ruined the scene a little bit. But I thought it was like a really rapid scene, like, because they're arguing, I thought that scene did a good job of kind of what a real life argument would kind of look like and sound like in this type of situation, what they were arguing about. And then it kind of ends, and then boom, spider comes in, steals both parents, and it's kind of, that's the start of the climax of the movie. So really enjoyed that scene. This is the bit I don't like. Just very silly. There could have been different ways to get to the point you wanted to execute. But like I said, it it bites all the other humans and cocoons them and all that, and it's quite rough with them and whatever. We see that with all the humans and shit, and it's skinned animals, blah, blah. Then when it comes to the baby brother, and I know they don't want to kill the baby off in a movie, good, because I don't like seeing that shit. I don't think it's ever needed in movies. Unless you're telling a type of story, a realistic story about someone, unfortunately, a miscarriage or something. But in this case, the spider gently comes down behind Charlotte without her knowing in its web and gently picks up the boy and then takes him and then cocoons him with the mum in the basement. What's that bullshit? Is that what you're telling me? The spider's like, she's a baby, I've got to be careful. I'm not going to bite it. I'm just going to gently steal it in my web and then take it and then cocoon it. Come on, that's just silly. How you're telling me an alien spider, like an animal, is going to be able to differentiate and just be nice to it because it's a baby? Come on, that's just silly. There could have been different ways you could have got to that with the baby not getting hurt. That was just really silly, I thought. That was pretty lazy. Ethan's sacrifice in the end where he knows he's going to get electrocuted because it's faulty, but also because it's wet from the sprinkler, that he's going to electrocute himself and kill himself, but it's going to be able to make the compactor work, and then Charlotte can use it to kill the spider, which she does. When, like I said, with the compactor, I knew that he was going to sacrifice himself, and that was going to be the reason why the spider gets killed. I thought was very silly. Yeah, not a big fan of that at all. Yeah, that's kind of all my major points from that. We will see if Sting has any trivia. And other than that, I'll go to my final review and my scoring. I mean, yeah, this is in the movie. It's not really a bit of trivia, but I did forget to mention it. Charlotte names the spider Sting after seeing a copy of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. Sting is not the name of a spider in The Hobbit, rather than the sword Bilbo uses to fight the spiders. So I thought that was a really cool title of the movie, and also the naming of the spider. Charlotte's name is more than likely a reference to Charlotte's Web, another story about a clever spider. Oh, look, I didn't make that connection. That's really dumb of me, considering I grew up reading and watching the movies and stuff. When Ethan asks Frank where he carries the nail gun while he's an exterminator, Frank answers protection. The nail gun is likely a reference to Arachnophobia, another movie about carnivorous spiders where the main character finishes one of the creatures off with a nail gun. That's what I mean about, that was definitely a reference to Arachnophobia. There's a few other ones where I'm like, oh, that was maybe a subtle reference. Like I said, that character and all that was definitely a reference to the movie, which I thought was really cool. First film directed by Keir Roche Turner to be set in the United States as opposed to his native Australia. I will look at his profile and see if I'm familiar with their work. In the basement, when Frank sees Sting's blood and says, if it bleeds, we can kill it. This is clearly a nod to Predator when the classic line is spoken by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Something I forgot to bring up, but it is in my notes, I think. I think I just missed it. Yeah, that was the one I was like, that is 100% a line that references another movie. That's definitely the one. I thought it was cool, considering I do love Arachnophobia and I love Predator. In the basement, when Sting creeps up to Charlotte and she turns her head away in fear towards camera, this is extremely similar to a scene in Aliens 3 between the Xenomorph and Ripley. I mean, that might be a direct reference, because when I watched it, I thought, okay, yeah, that's from Aliens 3, but then also listed other movies in my head, which I can't recall now, but I don't know if that's a direct call specifically to Alien 3. It could be, but that shot isn't just specific to Aliens 3. Body count is 5 people. There you go. So, I mean, that's a fairly decent body count for a killer animal movie, especially a spider killer animal movie. So, that's all the trivia. Look at Keir Roche Turner. Keir? I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah. He's an Australian director. He has directed... excuse me. Wormwood, Road of the Dead, which I think I did watch when it first came out, which was 10 years ago, so I don't remember anything about that movie. Wormwood Sequel, which I've never seen, and another movie I've never seen. So, yeah, I mean, I hope he gets more work from this. I think it was, fairly well directed and whatnot. But anyway, yeah, we'll go to the final ratings, which we do here on Goose Talks Film, which is we rate the movie out of 4 categories. Each category is rated out of 5. Then the overall score rating from that will then go towards end of year ratings, where I'll be listing the top 10 movies reviewed on the podcast and the bottom 10, which all comes down to what they're rated and blah, blah, blah. So if a movie's left off either list and it's really good, it's probably because I didn't cover it on the podcast. It's solely to those movies, but I will be doing Golden Goose Awards, which is my own film ceremony where I'll be doing best film, best director, blah, 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 blah. That'll be all movies released, so I'll be trying my hardest to watch as many movies as I can. Anyway, so, look, I thought and the 4 categories are directing, writing, acting, and cinematography. Anyway, I thought the directing was decent. I mean, it wasn't amazing, but I think I did like what he did in the apartment building and the restraints of being just one building. And I thought the establishing shots, and I thought the whole setting of it was good. I'm struggling to think of words right now, but anyway, I think for the director, I'll go a 3, which might be a bit generous, but I think a 3 out of 5 is pretty good. And then we'll go the writing. Yeah, look, I think it was, dot by dot, play by play, whatever you want to call it. It followed through what a lot of other killer animal movies do. Didn't really do a lot in that sense, where we knew who was going to survive, we knew who was going to get killed, we knew that the animal was going to get killed by the main characters, we knew that it was going to get killed in a very unique way. And I thought the dialogue was really good. I thought the dialogue was probably the best part of it, so I'll probably go 3 again. I thought the acting is probably what let it down, mainly because Charlotte, she's our main character. She's the protagonist. Like I said, I already started my issues with that character. I thought everyone else was convincing. I thought everyone was good. I thought Jermaine Fowler probably overacted, went over the top in the Eden scene, which was a bit disappointing. So I'll go a 2.5 for the acting. And sorry, that was what was that for writing? Yeah, that was acting. Cinematography. Like I said, I really enjoyed the shots. I thought they were really good. You don't always expect that type of craftsmanship in a movie like this. So I think I'll go a 3.25 for the movie. So I just some quick math. 11.75 if I've done that correctly. 11.75 out of 20, which is exact same rating as another movie that I've reviewed, but I won't say which one. But as I do more of these reviews, we'll see a lot of movies with the same ratings, which I think will make the list at the end very, very intriguing and entertaining. But anyway, I'll leave the episode there. Thanks for listening / watching. Make sure you follow Goose Talks Film on any social media platform, and like, subscribe, whatever you listen to me on. If it's Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, you watch me on YouTube, listen to me on Audible, whatever it is. I'm still working on getting on Apple Podcasts, so please bear with me so I can reach more ears. But there'll be more videos produced on my YouTube channel. I'll be doing movie tier lists and rankings and movie battles and all that type of stuff, as well as working on, like I said, the Golden Goose Film Awards that'll be presented in January, so that'll be really cool. And anyways, thank you for listening. I'll be back next week and hopefully back to another Friday episode. And anyway, this has been Goose, and as always, make sure you watch those movies. And I will catch you later.